3, 2, 1. Stand by, and we are live. All right, it is 9 o'clock on this Monday, October 13th, Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, depending on how you celebrate. I'm producer Chris. This is Tony P.
What's going on, everybody?
This is the Live Zone Primetime. I'm going to drop that countdown clock you see. It says coming up Live Zone Primetime, but we are live right now. You see the QR code in the corner of the screen as well, because that is your opportunity to weigh in too. We'll be guiding this ship, but you guys are able to weigh in on all the stories we talk about, or maybe some of the ones that we're not talking about. But the theme of this show is that if it is live and it is happening now, we are going to bring it to you. Tony P, thanks so much for being here
It is a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be sharing this stage with you, my friend. I'll tell you, I could not have a better wingman. We're both helping each other out, and just thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this, to bring the news live and right in person, everybody. So
yeah, this is a new type of show. It's streaming. We're doing our soft launch. We are live on YouTube right now. I believe I clicked live on that, so we should be good to go. I'm going to drop this lower third for the time being that says coming up, but I will keep that QR code in if I possibly can. Let me see what I'm doing here. There it is. All right. Well, if it is live and it is happening now, I told you we would bring it to you. And right now, Zohran Mamdani speaking up in New York City. This is a rally. He is obviously running for mayor just minutes ago. Before he took the stage, New York Attorney General Letitia, Tony, help me out. Letitia James. Thank you very much. Mind blank. Mine went blank on the
I know,
first
both
night.
of us.
I know.
It's like you passed it along to me.
I did. I apologize.
That's our
for
partnership,
that.
though. We're like brothers here, so that's okay.
But she spoke out for the first time. It was her first public remarks since she was indicted. We're going to let you listen into this for just a minute, and then we'll catch up on the other side.
Millions of dollars into this race because they say that we pose an existential threat. And I am here to admit something. They are right. We are an existential threat to billionaires who think their money can buy our democracy. We are an existential threat to a broken status quo that buries the voices of working people beneath corporations. And we are an existential threat to a New York where a hard day's work isn't enough to earn you a good night's rest. And we are absolutely an existential threat to disgraced politicians like Andrew Cuomo, who diminish public trust, harass women, and are unabashed in their desperation to collaborate with Donald Trump and his donors. Let me be clear. This is not a moment for capitulation. We are in a period of political darkness. Donald Trump and his ICE agents are snatching our immigrant neighbors from our city in broad daylight, right before our eyes. His authoritarian administration is waging a scorched earth campaign of retribution against any who dared oppose them, against the courts that dare hold them accountable, and against our trans and queer neighbors for simply daring to be themselves. And again, Trump has broken the promise he made to the American people that he would fight for the working class by taking on the cost of living crisis. Over the last 9 months, we have witnessed the largest wealth transfer from the poor to the rich in history. Trump is like Andrew Cuomo, beholden to billionaires and oligarchs. And like Cuomo, he has bent to their will. The desolation left in his wake has been staggering. Tens of millions of Americans, including millions right here in New York, will lose their Medicaid, their Medicare, their SNAP benefits. Because of Trump's corruption, children will go to sleep hungry. The sick will die. Any way you measure it, our lives have gotten worse. I think of the pastor I sat with just a few weeks ago in East Flatbush. He told me how in September, a young woman from his congregation approached him after church. She told him she was facing a deportation order. He knew her well, and he knew the work she did with young people with disabilities in this city. She told him she couldn't afford an attorney and had no one else. She asked if he would go with her to 26 Federal Plaza. He said yes. Sitting in the courtroom, the judge told her to be ready to leave in the clothes she was wearing. He asked her if she had said goodbye to her family. She began to cry. And then, in what felt like a miracle, the judge changed his mind. He decided he would put her TPS order before the deportation order. For a minute, it seemed as if the danger had passed. But the pastor knew that ICE stood outside. They did not care about a court order.
All right, we're back. Apologies for that. I cut that off a little prematurely because this show is a work in progress.
There is.
As you guys
did
know.
a survey
Of
of membership
what
looking
audio
at
do I have up right
things
now,
that
Tony?
cause school psychologists
we have
to
a
leave
spot,
and things that
aux
cause
4
school
output.
psychologists
Let's
to
go ahead
stay.
and close that. There we go.
Did I pronounce
You
that right?
did. That was perfect.
See, I'm
Thank
starting
you
to
so much.
learn all the technical.
All right,
you know,
we're going to
getting there.
take a quick minute here, and we are going to talk a little weather now because, in case you didn't know, we are currently dealing with nor'easter conditions.
Yes.
Along the Maryland coast and beyond. Mike Thomas joining us now live. I'm going to bring up some of his. Well, first of all, let's bring him into this conversation. What camera do I have?
Here we go.
How we want to do it. That's right. I like this
Mike
show.
Thomas, thank you for hanging out there.
The Three Stooges, we're ready.
Yeah, I know, exactly. A little sloppy there, but that's why
That's
this is
all
a
right.
soft launch.
And
Mike
that's
Thomas.
why you know it's live on
Right.
YouTube.
Exactly.
And that's what
Yes.
this is live television, internet vision, whatever
Authentic.
you want to call it.
People want authenticity now, Mike. You know it.
We
Let's-
still won't
I
cuss, but
wanna-
we want to.
Exactly.
Right.
I want to go back to that live picture from National Harbor right now, though, because you see the W on there for the Washington Commanders. They are
Yeah.
playing Monday Night Football right now. They just scored. It's 13-7 with about 9 minutes left in the second quarter. So in case you were wondering, rainy conditions out there in Prince George's County at Northwest
it's not
Stadium,
pretty.
though, Mike.
And if you've seen any of the game to this point, you can tell it's impacting the play. Because
Right.
poor Crosby Merritt fumbled a ball, and Jaden Daniels, even on that touchdown drive, had trouble holding on to the ball, but thankfully
Right.
he got it back a couple of times. But that's, I mean, hopefully they can fix it up here. But what you're showing right now is current radar, and I've thrown some fancy smancy graphics on it. Just to show you that this is an early season nor'easter. Now, why is it a nor'easter, Tony P?
Yes, I
What
think
we
of it as
learned?
snow. I think of it as snow, but you taught
do?
me something totally different last week. What was it?
Well, I'm asking you.
Oh,
What was it?
I had to answer my own test question. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Well, so you taught me that nor'easters are actually not about snow.
No,
I'm used to
no.
snow back in New England. It's actually about the rain and the direction. It's going to be anything. Rain, snow, it's about the direction, right?
The direction of the wind.
Yes.
We call them nor'easters for a region.
Right,
yes.
and it spins towards, the northeast region, and it goes in a certain direction, right?
So the winds are coming out of the north and east.
Okay,
right? Yeah,
got it.
that's
So-
what it- it's all wind direction.
See, I would have gotten a B- on that one. That's okay.
Well, that's generous. C+ in my book. But,
okay.
I'm a little bit of a mean grader.
You know what though? It helps me learn.
Yeah, that's right. You don't learn anything if I pass you.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting.
That was
we
most of
digress
my
here.
classes.
But you see the headline there, nor'easter impacting the coast. Now, as far as, say, rain is concerned, this hasn't been, like if this was a snowstorm that we were forecasting, right? Because that's what you think of when you think of nor'easters.
Right.
There would be a lot of angry folks. Because on Friday, this thing was looking what I would say was juicy. Meaning, if we had made a snowfall forecast on Friday, we probably would have been forecasting pretty widespread 6 to 12 inches of snow.
Wow.
Yeah, significant, right?
That's
not what we got. This nor'easter didn't quite come together as a lot of Hi guys. As a lot of weather models thought it was going to kind of late last week.
Okay.
So, it's much weaker in terms of the precipitation field, and you see just looking at that image there, the greens, the blues, it's all rain. The blue is just very light drizzle and showers.
Scary rain.
So essentially, we would have gotten probably less than an inch of snow. I'll have to check on the actual totals, but maybe 1 to 2 inches of snow by this point of the day. Like this would have been a bust. It had to have been a winter time. Now, it's certainly not along the coast, but it's because of the wind direction, right? It's pushing all the water, just like a tropical storm or a hurricane would.
Right. Similar
You're
path.
getting all these what we call storm surge impacts. Even though this is not a tropical system, it's having a lot of tropical impacts. The flooding that you're seeing in New Jersey, in even Ocean City, Maryland, that's all from water being forced into the inlets and the bays, and it has nowhere to go. So it's got to flood a little bit. I mean, if you've ever been to Ocean City during any sort of rain event, they flood pretty easily down that way. But this is all due to just water being forced up against the coastline, causing rough surf, rough seas, a little bit of beach erosion there, and then you see some of the video there of those high flood waters there in Ocean City.
My goodness. Now, so is low pressure always, I'm going to sound stupid here. Does low pressure...
That's not possible, Tony P. Come on.
Does that lower pressure always symbolize rain, or can high pressure be associated with rain too?
No, low pressure is always going to be high pressure is stable air, low pressure is unstable air.
Got it.
So high pressure is what we're having on, say, Tuesday night, Wednesday, Thursday, bringing sunshine back. Some night, like we're gonna get out of this by probably tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow morning there could still be some drizzle and stuff around.
Okay.
So I don't want to make it sound like we're snapping back to sunshine for Tuesday here, but maybe by after lunch we're looking at a little bit of sun breaking through. Wednesday, Thursday is going to show you more sunshine here. It's going to feel a lot like fall. But yeah, essentially this early season nor'easter, I would call it a bust in terms of precipitation, but it's certainly doing a doozy in terms of the stuff at the coast.
Does this symbolize anything that's going to come up for the winter time? Like we've been hearing from the Farmer's Almanac that it may be a rough winter. Is that true about these patterns?
One of the things, I'm actually working on an article for the upcoming winter outlook out in the back as we speak.
Okay.
One thing we do watch, and it's not always, nothing about, right, you read plenty of these winter outlooks, whether it's us, Farmer's Almanac, anything.
Right.
Winter is hard to predict. Obviously, like, take this storm, for example. I just told you that on Friday, which was what, 3 days ago, this storm looked very moisture heavy. Now, 3 days later, it's really not that moisture heavy. Now, try to predict 3 months in advance. Obviously, weather is one of those sciences where, it's a little trickier when the farther out you go. I worry because this is the second storm this fall that has done this, where it has looked more intense, and then as the pieces actually came together, they did not come together as well as the model suggested.
Okay.
I worry that if this pattern does repeat in winter, we could be in trouble with specifically what I call hype storms, where on the weather model guidance, it looks really exciting 3-4 days out. Like, oh my God, we're getting 6 inches of snow, right?
Right.
But then as we get 24 hours out, I'm like, oh, it's falling apart. That's something that we had trouble last February. There was one that made headlines that looked like a blizzard here in D.C. And then 3 days before, all the weather models were like, oh, wait, never mind. Like, it's not going to come together. That's happened twice so far this fall.
Interesting.
And as we get into what we call a La Nina winter, La Ninas are not... There have been a couple that have been pretty snow heavy in D.C., but most of them aren't. And I don't want to give away our big winter outlook. We got to save something for
No, you should please do.
But it's no secret La Nina is coming once again. So it'll be our second or third in a row here. And it will certainly play an impact on our forecast for the upcoming prediction.
Got it. And that makes a lot of sense. Now what causes like these storms to fragment, if you will, and not execute fully, if that's a good phrase?
A lot of it's jet stream. How strong the upper level winds are, how deep is the jet stream diving to the south. A storm like this essentially comes together in pieces. And if one piece is stronger or weaker than a model thinks it's going to be compared to another piece, and how they join in space and time, that's where you're getting math and physicsy on me, and I'll sit here for an hour.
Oh, no, I'm not going to let
that could be a whole show.
I'm not going to let him do that.
It's a Tony and Mike show.
We're going to let Mike get back to it. But in the meantime, I do want to take you guys out to Ocean City, because that's where Fox weather correspondent Robert Ray was earlier this afternoon. Take a look at the conditions there. All right. Why is that not doing it?
Oh, it is inundated with sand from the push of energy from the nor'easter, and you see the boardwalk. Well, there's some people out. And look down here, a battered beach here, as if a battle occurred on Sunday when the nor'easter came in, pushing over 50-mile-an-hour plus wind gusts, sustained winds in the 20 to 30-mile-an-hour range, and just blowing sand. Listen to this. Huge swells and crashing waves up and down the Atlantic seaboard. And here, you know, honestly, the elements, they tropical storm with those winds going. Yeah, nor'easter, we don't have a name for them, but indeed, this area was caught in a bad situation. We did see some inlet bay flooding. So on this barrier island, from where the shore is, right, water did come into the street. Not uncommon to get, but I was told by fire officials and police officials that tourists couldn't handle it, and some of the inundation was more than they anticipated. But let's up above. Look at this drone video right now, and you see the Atlanta the day after this nor'easter impacts, and just stunning video as that drone just circles the area and sees those waves crashing in. And then you really understand, you get a feel for the power and the energy of these systems, right? When you see all of that, and then you imagine huge winds and driving rain during that. It's really intense. High tide, okay, at least today on Monday, has not been extraordinarily difficult. So we have seen water come up, and look at this. You see surfers that are out. These guys know what they're doing in the Atlantic. And the camera moving in as water comes in, and the surfers their way out. Certainly dangerous, but they're in shape and they understand the dynamics of all of this. Listen to one of them.
It's rough. It was cleaned up now because the winds are offshore, so it's good surfing conditions.
At one point, over 30 million Americans were in the bullseye of this nor'easter. That's a lot of people, a lot of communities, and a lot of beaches and boardwalks. You know, thankfully, there has not been catastrophic damage. We have had loss of life, which is just terrible to hear, unfortunately. This is just a warning for what will happen potentially over the winter as snow nor'easters take hold. And yet, we still have about a month and a half left. We shall see if we fall. Nonetheless, the erosion that has experienced on these beaches up and down the Atlantic seaboard has been intense. We're on the shores of Maryland. Robert Ray, Fox Weather.
All right, so that was Robert Ray and Mike Thomas giving us the storm forecast, the nor'easter forecast. So.
Always feel smarter when I talk to Mike, and then when I listen about weather, I've always wanted to be a math person.
Yeah.
And just to kind of see math and science, and to just be able to learn this stuff and even ask, like, I would say, kind of dumb questions and get good answers out of them. It really is a fun
Mike's
experiment
a
for me.
teacher,
He's
for
so
sure.
good at it. My goodness, like, I mean, I could listen to him all day talk about physics and jet streams and all that. And also, one of my dream opportunities would be to someday go and actually cover a weather event or a rain event, be in the jacket and be like, it's 50 to below zero out here and the winds are blowing, you know, someday.
Someday. Trust
That's
me.
bad. There's a bad reenactment. Not good.
I will just say, if you work here long enough, there odds are you'll end up covering snow.
You have me on scene for the show one. It'll do one night.
That's what we will be doing come winter if there
Yes.
is snow happening.
Tony P.
during
Live.
the 9 o'clock hour. All right. In the meantime, Tony, let's get to what other stories you're watching
Yes.
today.
So good evening, everyone. So we'll start tonight with breaking developments overseas. President Trump traveled to the Middle East today, addressing the Israeli parliament and later signing the first phase of his Gaza peace deal in Cairo with Egyptian President al-Sisi and international partners. Under the agreement, Hamas released all 20 living Israeli hostages and the remains of 4 others, while Israel freed 1,900 Palestinian prisoners. The plan establishes a ceasefire, partial Israeli withdrawals, and a new humanitarian corridor through Egypt, a move President Trump called a turning point for lasting peace. Back home, the markets rallied today after President Trump softened his tone towards China. The Dow jumped 340 points, and the S&P rose nearly 1%, and the Nasdaq climbed back above 17,000 as investors breathed a little easier tonight. But inside the White House, aides confirmed today that President Trump is also considering invoking the Insurrection Act, allowing troops to be deployed in U.S. cities amid rising protests tied to immigration raids and the shutdown. That shutdown is now in day 13, folks, and it continues to hit Americans hard. The IRS remains half-staffed, air traffic controllers still are unpaid, and this week the Smithsonian Museums and National Zoo are closed. The CDC, though, is rehiring staff to track recent outbreaks, while food safety and housing programs remain frozen. A portrait of the Washington gridlock, producer Chris. And coast to coast, the weather is wild, as we just talked about, the nor'easter in New York City, as well as a rare October storm that is soaking Los Angeles, prompting mudslide warnings. Meanwhile, in the world of pop culture tonight, Zendaya confirmed she'll star in and co-produce a Serena Williams biopic, her first major role since Challengers, instantly lighting up social media, of course. And finally, back home as well, the U.S. Navy celebrates 250 years of service today, honoring 2.5 centuries of courage and sacrifice at sea. And producer Chris, that is your Tony P. rundown on this first night on YouTube.
250 anniversary celebration happening up in Philadelphia. They had a ton of events planned.
Saw that.
Unfortunately, the weather that we've been talking about extensively today did have a little bit of an impact on how they were able to do some of those parades. I have video of it. I'll try to get that up for us in just a little bit. In the meantime, let's take a quick break, Tony. Zohran Mamdani just finished speaking up in New York. We were going to take you back to that because I cut it off a little early. If anything else happens, if any more speakers hit the podium, we will take you there live. In the meantime, before we head to break, a quick update on the Commanders game. Still 13-7, just about 5 minutes left in the second quarter. We'll keep you updated on that if you're not watching live. If you're watching us instead, thank you. We'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. All right, welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime on this Monday night. Tony, you just ran through some of the stories you are following tonight, and one of them, of course, that historic peace deal involving Israel, Hamas, and Gaza. So Israel and Hamas moving ahead on a major step. I want to take you to some video real quick.
Mr. Prime
there you
Minister,
see the president speaking, but
Mr.
first I want to
Speaker,
get to some
esteemed members
video.
of the Knesset.
There we go. There's the video I was talking about. So they're moving ahead on the first major step in the U.S. brokered Gaza ceasefire agreement, releasing all 20 living Israeli hostages and freeing nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. That was earlier today. Some details of the deal remain unclear tonight, including two key issues: whether Hamas will disarm and who will govern Gaza. However, President Trump was in Israel earlier today to mark the occasion. He is currently on his way back to the White House, due to arrive shortly after midnight, I believe. But he spoke to Israeli lawmakers and called the occasion a golden age for Israel. So I do want you to take a listen to the president's remarks.
Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 2 long years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is this. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this soil for all. And after so many unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity. This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death, and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism, whose partnership did so much to make this momentous day possible. You know who I'm talking about. There's only one. Minister Benjamin. Baby, please stand up. And he is not easy, I want to tell you. He's not the easiest guy to deal with, but that's what makes him great. That's what makes him great. Thank you very much, baby. Great job. And let me also convey my tremendous appreciation for all of the nations of the Arab and Muslim world that came together to press Hamas to set the hostages free and to send them home. We had a lot of help. We had a lot of help from a lot of people that you wouldn't suspect, and I want to thank them very much for that. It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace. And it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together. I'd like to thank several great American patriots for their invaluable help in getting something done that almost everyone thought was absolutely impossible. We were wasting our time. So many people said, "You're just wasting your time." But we weren't, because we had talented people working with us, and we had people that loved your country, and frankly, people that loved the region, loved the Middle East.
So that was President Trump speaking earlier today to Israeli lawmakers about that peace deal in Gaza. Right now, you're taking a live look at the White House and a post on X from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. 12:45 a.m. local time on Air Force One, coming up on 36 hours of this trip, and President Trump is gaggling with the press, hardest working POTUS ever. They did release audio only of that gaggle session with reporters, which is where the president talks with reporters on Air Force One on the way home. The 2-year war, meanwhile, killed at least 67,000 people in Gaza, according to its health ministry. It remains unclear who will pay for reconstruction, a process that could take years. All day, reaction has been pouring in from every corner of the world. We mentioned the president is now on his way back to D.C. He's already turning his focus to another peace process, Tony, because he is set to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky on Friday here in Washington, D.C. So talk to me a little bit about this peace process.
Yes, I mean, this is absolutely historic. I mean, when you think about where we were even a month and a half ago, there was no end in sight when it comes to this war and this incredible tragedy that has happened. But when you think about the events of the last month, you know, it started with the Israeli bombing of Qatar, where there were the negotiators that actually were harmed and injured, and some were killed in that bombing. That was the beginning, I think, of the opportunity for the U.S. and partners in the Middle East to start really figuring out how can we bring this war to an end, because it looks like Bibi Netanyahu really stepped in it with that move, especially with the U.S. and Qatar's relations starting to grow a little bit closer with the Trump administration, and things such as the $400 million jet and some of the investments being made, Qatar here in the States, as well as vice versa with some more Middle East investment from the United States. So that was a big kind of fragile moment, and it looks like the president took the opportunity to use that leverage and really brought Bibi Netanyahu to the table. And at the nth hour, both these parties came together. Now the first phase is basically complete, it looks like. Today in Egypt, the president was talking with the President El-Sisi from Egypt and saying, look, we're already heading into phase 2 and phase 3, and he was with a lot of international leaders saying that, but we're starting to move forward in that process. Now, a lot remains to be seen if that actually comes to fruition. But when it concerns the issue of the funding for the rebuilding of Gaza, the president mentioned a few times today about the Arab nations and their considerable amount of wealth and how they want to help out with this. And even saying there are partners that you wouldn't think were possible that actually come to the table and wanting to invest in the rebuilding of Gaza. The question remains, what does that mean for the people of Gaza? Because they are going home today to their land that is decimated in so many cases, whether it be in Rafah, whether it be in Gaza City. We are starting to see some pullback of the Israeli troops from the northern parts of Gaza. The question is, what does that look like for the residents and citizens that have property there? And it's gone. Like, what does that look like from a logistical perspective? Funding, how do you allocate that? That still remains to be seen. But if the president is really meaning it when it comes to, you know, the international partners from, you know, the Arab world, you know, Bahrain and Dubai and the Emirates that want to step up, as well as Egypt, Turkey, then this could be an incredible process to actually rebuild Gaza and make it, you know, a potential, you know, sovereign state. Again, talking about what, you know, the international leaders are looking for, the Arab nations. President El-Sisi today talked about multiple times, this is the beginning of the pathway to a two-state solution. And this is a thing that the Arab nations are very passionate about, from Saudi Arabia to Egypt to Turkey. I do not think that that will be something that the Arab nations let go. This will be a very important part of the negotiations. And it'll be interesting to see how the relationship now between Bibi Netanyahu and President Trump evolve over time, because at the end of that speech, as we saw, folks, he was like, he's a hard person to deal with. So is that an insight? President Trump tends to do that, where he'll make little jokes or kind of passing statements to really signal how he feels about a relationship. So we'll see, is that something that is more tenuous than we think? Is he going to leverage more of his, I would say, influence upon Bibi Netanyahu and say, hey, it's time to really end this thinking, let's get a two-state solution? Because he is a transactionalist in many ways, and he wants to see peace, it looks like, but also wants to get that the Nobel Peace Prize. Does that have an impact on it? And will he use this leverage? Because, I mean, you looked at you know, the Knesset, when President Trump got up there, they were chanting more for him than they were chanting for their own prime minister. So
very true.
especially a lot of the hostage families are very much, you know, praising President Trump today. And throughout this process, they were very critical of the Netanyahu government for how they handled everything and putting their loved ones' lives at risk, especially the families that had to go through the loss of a family member through, you know, the deceased hostages and having those remains sent home to them. They are not happy with the Netanyahu government, even though they may be grateful to President Trump for getting the remains home. It is still a long way to go here. And also to note about the really tragic loss for the deceased hostages and their families, they are not happy with the progress of how many of the remains have begun to get into Israeli control. Only 4 bodies as of today, or 4 remains, have been brought to the Israeli government and that Israeli control. So, with that being said, there's a lot of things
Tony,
that
I'm
could
just
go off the
going to
rails.
jump in for a quick second. We're going to take you to a live picture. This is from our weather camera at the wharf. Not sure what's happening right now. It looks like a car accident. You see a fire truck right there. We saw the flashing lights, so I apologize for jumping in here. I just
No worries.
if something's live and happening now, I promise to take you to it. We'll find out what's happening here while we take a quick commercial break. However, as we head to break, I do want to take you back out to National Harbor. That is where that Washington Commanders W is up on the Capitol wheel right now as we're inching closer to halftime. Washington still trailing 13-7 out at Northwest Stadium. This is the rematch between the Bears and the Commanders. Remember last year's Hail Mary game.
Yes.
Jaden Daniels cementing his place in Washington. Fandom, the Hall of Fame.
He might be history.
Hail
I think
Mary.
history.
But of course, this is also a homecoming for Bears quarterback Caleb Williams, who was born and raised and played right here in Washington, D.C.
Sure
We'll keep
was.
an eye on this one. Just a little less than a minute left in that second quarter. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime on this Monday night. We're taking you back out live to this shot from our weather camera at the wharf, our sky camera at the wharf. This is the Case Memorial Bridge. You can see some sort of fire activity and what looks like a possible car wreck right there. We saw the flashing lights, so we wanted to pop this up and just kind of keep you up to date on what's happening. It looks like some lanes are still getting by on that bridge, so no major traffic impact at this time. Of course, we'll keep an eye on it in the meantime, let you know any developments as we get them. Our assignment desk is putting some phone calls in to DC Fire and EMS in the meantime. Tony, it's halftime officially.
Finally.
Over at Northwest Stadium. Commanders still trailing 13-7.
Yes, and our quarterback Jaden Daniels had an interesting night. He's had the one touchdown pass, but of course had the interception back in the first quarter, and he's only thrown about 74 yards, so that makes him a passer rating of 87.1. Not really that great. I'd say probably a C minus start for Jaden Daniels, especially coming off of that incredible performance last week in LA against the Chargers, where he just steamrolled over that LA defense. So again, this could be
a little something to prove that week too, because remember that was kind of a homecoming game for Jaden Daniels.
It was, and it's a homecoming game for Caleb Williams, so he wants to show up and show out.
Definitely wants revenge for what happened last time.
Absolutely.
With that last-second Hail Mary that cost them the game. All right, let's take a live look out at Capitol Hill now, because today marked day 13 of the government shutdown. Frustrations continue to grow on Capitol Hill and for federal workers all across the nation and right here in the nation's capital, obviously. Today, House Speaker Mike Johnson warned that this could become one of the longest shutdowns in American history, surpassing the 35-day closure in late 2018. Mike Johnson also pointed the finger at Democrats for blocking pay for federal workers who are still standing firm on better health care demands. Democrats still standing firm on those health care demands. Let's take a listen in to Mike Johnson.
Political games that are being played by Democrats here in Congress. We're now on day 13 of the Democrats' Schumer shutdown. This marks the third week that Democrats have blocked paychecks to our troops. They blocked pay for 2.2 million federal workers, and they held critical services that the American people rely upon in limbo. At least they tried to block those checks. We are so very grateful that President Trump, again showing strong leadership, has stepped up to ensure that our troops are going to be paid on October 15th. While we wait for Democrats to stop holding the country hostage. Truly, truly grateful for a hands-on commander-in-chief. I spoke with the president at length before he left on this trip to the Middle East, and he and I were both so frustrated. The Democrats are perfectly happy to do all this damage while they play political stunts. We can hardly believe that they're willing to go along with this, on the gambit and the false narrative that they've created. And as you all know, here in Congress, Republicans have voted over and over to reopen the government and end all this pain. We passed a clean, nonpartisan CR that would pay to the troops and the DSA agents and Border Patrol and the rest of our federals. We did our job. We had that vote over 3 weeks ago now, and the bill is still sitting in the Senate, where Democrats have now voted 7 times to keep the government closed. I brought our handy chart again today, because they were out breathlessly over the weekend in media outlets, Democrats in Congress, including Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, claiming facts that are simply untrue. They claim that this didn't happen, but this is exactly what the vote tally is. And on September 19th, the House passed the resolution that got everyone paid and kept the services flowing, and they voted against it. Every Democrat but one in the House voted not to pay the troops, not to pay TSA, Border Patrol, air traffic controllers, and all the rest. The Senate Democrats then voted that down, and you see now 8 times total in Congress, Republicans have voted to keep the government open, and Democrats have voted to close it, period, end of sentence. And why did they do this? Because they want to spend $1.5 trillion in new taxpayer-funded spending as a ransom for ending the shutdown. Not our talking points, this is in the record, and they filed it. No matter how they twist it, this is a clean, nonpartisan CR. It does not include new spending. It does not include partisan strings attached at all. And this is something, as we have pointed out over and over, that Democrats have supported repeatedly. In fact, 13 different times during the Biden administration. Even the liberal New York Times admits the obvious truth here. You have leaders on the Democrat side like Jay Johnson, who spoke out this week and said, end it, open the government, and then have these negotiations. We were always planning to do that, to negotiate on the other issues. Again, we have to be very clear, the shutdown did not have to happen, but every American needs to understand why it did. And I'll reiterate, I'll summarize for you very briefly again. What happened? It happened because while Republicans are working to ensure the American people are taken care of, Democrats are playing a political game. Unlike 2013, the Democrat Party is utterly rudderless. There have been times in the past where there were shutdowns. Democrats today have no leader, no vision, no direction. The party's at their lowest point in decades in terms of public opinion polls. And so they threw this Hail Mary pass. Chuck Schumer knows this. He reads the polls religiously. He knows his party is furious with him for doing the right thing back in March when he helped to pass a clean CR and avert a government shutdown. It was the right thing to do. He said so himself emphatically on the Senate floor. And that bill he supported is nearly identical to what we're offering today. The only thing that's changed is his personal political calculation. His consultants and his pollsters have told him he needs to show a fight to President Trump, even if it means hurting millions of American families. So that is exactly what Chuck Schumer is doing. He's determined that his own political survival is worth the irreversible harm he's inflicting on the American people. He's gambling with people's lives and livelihoods to appease the far-left Marxist base of his party so that he can keep his job.
Probably maybe like 2-3 minutes.
And make no mistake,
So I'll give
this
this
is
to
bigger
like
than Chuck
47.
Yep.
Democrats are
Open it up,
terrified
toss
of their
it over
radical
to
Marxist
you.
base.
Talk about it till like 50,
the
then
ones
I'll
who have been
move
here
on
for
to
a
another
while,
like local story.
kind
that
of
we
your,
can-
your father, your grandfather's
toss to it,
Democrat
sound like
Party,
from.
the remnant of those folks who are still here in the halls, they're terrified to show any willingness to work with Republicans or to work with President Trump, even when that would clearly benefit the American people. And everybody sees right through this. Meanwhile, Republicans are governing with common sense in just the first 9 months of unified Republican leadership. We've cut taxes for hardworking American families. We ended the border crisis. We're ending the crime crisis. We're rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse in government. And now bringing an end to conflicts around the globe. And what have Democrats done? Nothing but distract. Now, I'll end on one very important note. Ending this shutdown is not a one-party exercise. Republicans do have control of Congress, quote unquote, but it still takes 60 votes to pass a funding bill in the Senate. All of this is the way the founders intended the process to work. Any Democrats who suggest otherwise are willfully misleading the American people. Chuck Schumer gave a speech on the Senate floor, I think it was on Friday, looked right into the cameras and said, Republicans are in control, and this is all on them. He knows full well that it takes 60 votes, and we only have 53 Republicans in the Senate. There's already a bipartisan.
All right, so you've been listening to House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking out earlier today, day 13 of the shutdown. You're also taking a live look at Capitol Hill and that fire and police activity at the Case Memorial Bridge. That's what you're looking at in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Tony, you heard Speaker Johnson say that Republicans are in control, but they are not to blame for this shutdown. Meanwhile, in addition to all of the impacts we've seen on federal workers, also now the Smithsonian and the National Zoo shut down. So major impacts for local businesses and just tourism here in the nation's capital.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a huge supporter of the Smithsonian Museums. I go there all the time. I actually went in last week just to make sure I made it before the 12th deadline, because the Smithsonian Museums aren't totally funded by, completely funded by the federal government. So they had a little bit of budget left, so they kept them open about 11 days into the shutdown. Now they're all fully shut down. Now, what's interesting to note is that Treasury right now is warning about real economic damage. The White House report is saying it's about $15 billion in GDP at this point, potentially on a daily basis as well. Also, there have been reversals at the CDC because a lot of separations that happened during the Doge era are now trying to be refilled again after backlash and legal scrutiny, as well as some outbreaks across the country that need to, be addressed by those services. Now, with no funding right now, with payments that might be in the limbo, who knows if these people will come back, right? Are they mandated to? It'll be interesting to find that out. Now, a huge development today in terms of layoffs. Of course, the administration has been doing RIFs since last week. Russ Vought posted that on Twitter, or X. And today that happened in the Department of Education, where the Education Department is cutting staff in critical areas, including special education, the Civil Rights Division. They are reducing their workforces significantly today. And that is being echoed by Vice President J.D. Vance over the weekend, one of the Sunday shows, and said that they will be deeper cuts as long as this shutdown continues. So it seems like they're using that as a potential negotiating tactic here to get Democrats to give up on their health care push. But the health care polling is working for Democrats, because still the polling shows, even about 13 days in, the Republicans bear the majority of the brunt of this. In a recent poll, it showed 47%. I have it right here. Washington Post polls showed 47% blamed Trump and Republicans, while a smaller percentage blamed the Democratic Party. Also, a YouGov survey just last week showed that 45% of folks said that Trump is very responsible for the shutdown. So Republicans are still bearing the brunt of this. That's why you're seeing some of the shifting in the language. Speaker Johnson today talking about, well, we're in control, but we don't have the full power to end the shutdown. However, they technically do, because they could potentially nuke the filibuster. That's been discussed on both sides of the political aisle for the last 10, 15 years. Of course, it started with Democrats doing with cabinet secretaries, and then Republicans totally nuked it for Supreme Court justices back in the first Trump administration. So there has been movements on that. Is there openness to potentially nuking the filibuster? Senator John Thune last week, the majority leader, really put an end to that and said absolutely not. So both Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune said no way on that front. So does that shifting language show that Republicans are willing to maybe negotiate, they maybe feel the pressure? Doesn't seem it, though, overall, because they are digging their heels in. Senator Lindsey Graham today said we will not be negotiating and be held hostage for the ACA subsidies. So there's still some of that anti-Obamacare energy that's being expressed, even though you see on the more further end of the party, Marjorie Taylor Greene and others saying, hey, we need to end this, get the ACA subsidies in there, then we can move forward. So there might be some fracturing, who knows, but don't forget, we have everything going on in the Middle East. That could be protection for the president politically for now, to really, keep his stance when it comes to this shutdown. A lot of things at play right now. This is so, again, I'm only 27. I've seen a lot of shutdowns, but the speaker may be right. This could go longer than 35 days, because there is no chatter at all. There's no behind-the-scenes stuff. Hey, they're negotiating on the ACA. They're going to do a standalone on defense. That happened a little bit last week, but there isn't a lot right now. So it's kind of like an empty office, if you will.
Yeah.
So who knows? This could be 45, 50 days potentially.
We'll keep an eye on it. In the meantime, I do want to move on to another story we're following tonight. This one out of Bowie. Right now, you're taking a look at a post on X from the Bowie Police Department and a poster they put out asking for help, because it was a scary scene that unfolded earlier this afternoon. Police there say around 2:30 they responded to a call for an armed robbery. This was along the 15,200 block of Annapolis Road. The victim, a Bowie High School student who was approached by someone in a black Acura demanding his coat. The victim was hurt and taken to the hospital. A bystander tried to follow the suspect, but the suspect fired 2 shots out a car window, and the bystander backed off. Police released a suspect description a little later. That's what you're looking at on the left-hand side of your screen. Earlier tonight, though, Fox 5's Nana Santu Obanzu talked to Deputy Chief Robert Liberati about the investigation. He also had advice for anyone with expensive designer coats or thinking about buying one. Take a listen.
How scary. And you have high school, you have student, you have someone taking your jacket off of you, and then you have gunfire. As law enforcement, as a deputy chief, when you hear that, how concerning is this?
Yeah, it's very very concerning. It's a storm of bad events happening all at the same time. Plus, it was just after dismissal, so there were other students in the area. But these are young people, and they're going about their business. They may not be aware of these kind of situations that occur. May not be looking for them.
Mhm. Now, I want to talk to you about prevention. And as we move forward, it's getting colder. People are going to have their coats and jackets on. This is not the first time we've heard of a story like this. Last year, we did so many in DC, in Virginia, different brands. I think a popular one was Canada Goose, but the one that you mentioned is pretty new. I want to go back to it really quickly. What is it called?
Moose
Moose
knuckles,
Moose
and I
Knuckles.
wasn't aware of it before today. But
Okay.
They sell from anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 for the coat.
I see. What's your message moving forward? I mean, obviously people are still going to put on their coats because it's cold, but what kind of awareness do you want to put out there with, these high-priced items, especially going into the winter time? We've seen it happen across the country.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of what could have happened. You probably had a parent or a relative that thought they were doing something really good for their young person, getting them an item that's popular, that's expensive. But I think you've got to realize where we are in society with these kind of things. You've got to use good judgment. There's nothing wrong with buying your child good things. You want them to have good things. I'm a parent. I want my children to have good things, but I also realize that certain things can get them exposed or into trouble, and I think this is a good example of it.
All right, so Nana Santua Bonzo will have much more on that story coming up on Fox 5 News at 10 in just a couple minutes. In the meantime, we do want to take you to this other story out of Montgomery County. That's where Superintendent Dr. Thomas W. Taylor is talking to the community about what he calls hard truths regarding much needed school building improvements. This was a meeting live streamed earlier tonight. According to a letter from the school board sent to parents back in June, the board requested $21.6 million on top of the $1.853 billion it requested for capital improvements throughout the school district. That money is in part to compensate for a shortfall in state aid. It also includes increases in the cost of projects like addressing the backlog of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning projects that have been impacted by rising construction costs. There will be opportunities for the public to weigh in at meetings again on October 23rd and the 28th, and if necessary on November 6th. The superintendent will also hold listening sessions on October 21st and 22nd. Fox 5's Katie Barlow is going to have much more on this story as well coming up on Fox 5 at 10 o'clock, Tony. So two of the big stories we're following locally, I should say. The other big one, of course, that we are following are the Washington Commanders. The third quarter now underway, still trailing 13-7.
Stalemate.
That W still up, hopefully.
I didn't even see that until you pointed it out.
Hopefully, you didn't notice that earlier when I pulled it up for Mike Thomas?
That was, I had to kind of take an optical illusion a little bit. I had to look into that, but I do see that.
Fun fact.
Well done.
They also have projected a 5 up there before for Fox 5.
Really?
Because they're big fans of us down in National Harbor. You know that's where we do our Zip Trip finale every year.
Next year I'm coming, folks.
You better come. Tony, before we go, I mentioned at the top of the show, Columbus Day, federal holiday for some people out there. Yes. It's a date that obviously very mixed feelings for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
But Italian Americans are one group that have really tried to hold on to this holiday, a celebration of the discovery of the New World as an Italian American.
Yeah, yes.
Do you mind if I just ask your quick feelings?
No, you absolutely can.
I know it's a complicated topic.
It is. It was originally meant as a holiday to celebrate the achievements and the struggle of Italian Americans who had immigrated to the United States and some of the discrimination that they had faced. That was the original impetus of the holiday. And I think that impetus should remain. Mm-hmm. I think Christopher Columbus is not a good representation of Italian Americans or Italians generally. There are so many better Italians, but even modern ones that we can really showcase and highlight in this, in this country and around the world. Inventors. We can talk about, world leaders that have done great things. And I just think Christopher Columbus is the wrong person to memorialize, especially we know the history, what he did when he came to the Americas. And he was even criticized at the time. So you can't say he was a victim of his times or he wasn't aware of what he was doing. You had other explorers and folks, in Europe and around the world that was saying, and again, back then saying they were writing it, saying that he was wrong for what he was doing to, the native people and and all the individuals that died, from, colonialism in that time. I think he's the wrong person to honor, but the Italian American story and what, our heritage means and the struggle, I think that is important to talk about. But he's not the person you want to channel that through. There are so many, regular, folks, not celebrities or figures, public figures. There are many people that we could memorialize that are better. So I appreciate our heritage, especially, you know, Italian American Heritage Month is all of October, but we can do better than this. And I think Christopher Columbus is not the right person to memorialize. And again, I honor the native peoples of this country that were the first people in America. And we honor them today as well. Yep. But I also honor my heritage as Italian American, but we can't honor guys like Columbus. No way.
Understood. All right, Tony P., thank you so much for weighing in on that topic and all of the rest of them. Thank you to everyone out there who watched this soft launch first episode of the Live Zone.
Did I right, my friend?
We did it. We made it the full hour. We'll be back again tomorrow night and every night at 9 o'clock. You can tune in here. Also, we'll put up that QR code as always. You guys can weigh in there. That's how you can join the conversation. We'll have the live Zoom room going. In the meantime, you can also jump in the comments section because we are streaming on YouTube. Eventually, we'll be streaming right here on Fox Local.
Yes, we will.
Let us know what you guys think of the show. Let us know what we can do better. Let us know what you want us to talk about because this show will evolve as we go. In the meantime, we're going to take you right back out to National Harbor, that live picture. We're done.